exciting edition of my Unreal Framework course featuring the ALS locomotion, C++ framework and plugin. Okay guys, just make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy this video, and let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the actor component. Well, you've probably seen this around all the time. Actor component, actor, player controller. What does it all mean? Well, let's break it down. Actor components are probably something very interesting. They're based in an Unreal Engine. We use components to build our game. What I mean by that is you have a list of components that you will be using on your actor, which are good for reusability in your games. So here are some things about actors that we should know. Actor components are robust and they live inside of actors. We talked about actors in the other video, so if you missed that, go ahead and go back and watch that video. Actor components or components can handle different specific tasks. So we're talking about your character movement, we're talking about your camera component, and many other components, your attributes, your skills component. There are many different things that you can make with actor components, and the good thing about them is that you can reuse them. The usability is there, right? So you can reuse these components, and you can also find that there's a scene component that can be attached and that can add a position, rotation, and also a scale, right? And so these are different types of components that I'm talking about. The scene component, the character movement component, the camera component. These are all different components that do different things, but they all work together so that we can build our game. So let's move on. Alright, as you can see, here's Unreal Engine, and if I just go over here to the CPP file and click New C++ class, and I pop up here, you will look over here and see that there's actually a character, pawn, an actor component. Now keep this in mind, you can also do this in blueprints. Maybe sometime in the future I will show you how to do it in blueprints, but I'm expecting most of you to already understand a little bit about that. If you don't, go ahead and go to Unreal's learning site and learn a little bit about blueprints, but you can make components, actor components, and blueprints. Okay, so let's talk about how we actually get started in making one of these nice actor components. Well, the first thing that we need to do in order to set up our components is step 1. We can declare them as a variable and put them inside of our constructor. Okay, so let's go through this. So here it is right here. I've used a uProperty macro. I've said that I can edit it anywhere, and sooner or later you'll start to see edit anywhere a lot. It just means that you can edit this anywhere in the editor. The uProperty, basically it exposes this variable to the editor so that we can actually visually see it. Blueprint read, write just means a get and a set. So later in the future I will go over a whole video based on blueprint macros, so look for that in the future. But just so that if you guys don't know, it's just our getters and our setters for getting and setting variables. And then category, of course, is you can name each variable and put them in different categories inside the editor. So what I've done over here is I've created a uStatic mesh component. I put it to a pointer, and let's say, for example, I wanted to create a base helicopter, right? So I would just call it helicopter base mesh, and then I would go into the constructor and I would put it inside, and I would put its value over here, and I would use this thing called create default subobject. What create default subobject does is what it does. It creates a default subobject. Well, this subobject that we're trying to get is the uStaticMesh component. So it's going to actually create that. We're going to create it in the constructor. If you don't know what a constructor is, right now is a good time for you to go to Unreal's Learning and go ahead and check out what constructors are. In fact, my C++ course, we will also be talking about constructors. So look out for that in that course if you still don't understand what they are. But I'm not going to go into further detail about it because at this point you should kind of have an understanding of what they are. If not, please look into C++ and check out my course. So, anyways, let's get back to it. So I've created in step 2, I've created this helicopter base mesh. Now I have a base mesh for my helicopter. So if I just want an overall helicopter without attaching the wings to it, or the propellers you would say, then I would create a base mesh, and it would be created inside the editor where I can see it and add an actual mesh inside of it in blueprints, because remember, we exposed it with the U property. So once that happens, I can also set it up for a root component, which means that other components will be attached to it, and there'll be a hierarchy. This is really good because now I can use setup attachment, and let's say I wanted to add some propellers in, I could probably do that. So just remember that what I did was in the header file of the character, I declared the variable, and then in the CPP files where I put the information inside of it. And this is actually in the constructor. Okay, so let's move on. And again, if you don't know what that is, then you need to go ahead and go back to C++ and maybe do a research on constructors and actually build up your knowledge on it, and then come back to this video and watch it, and then you'll be like, oh my god, it clicks now. But anyways, let's move on. So the main thing that I want you to get out of this video is that components are like the building blocks of our game. So if you want to build a combat components, ability components, stats, statistics, attribute components, targeting components, health components, we can build components and we can start to put it in our game. We can put it on our character. So as you can see, this ALS character right here, he's pretty much blank. But in the future, if we give him some of these components, we'll start getting better gameplay. It'll start coming alive. A targeting component is really good for melee, right? Because he needs a target on his enemies. A combat component, well, what would you put inside of that? I guess you would put some collision, right? Because you need really good collision. You'd probably want to share it with your other AI, with your AI, right? If he's also another combat AI, right? Or you can use that code to expand on it for an AI combat component. Also, abilities. Your character is going to need some abilities, right? What can your character do? He can double jump. He can triple jump. He can fire smoke. He can do a lot of different things. Statistics and attributes. Okay, let's talk about that. So, what are his points? What are his skill points? What are the attributes? Health, mana. How do we deduct these certain attributes, right? And so another thing we want to look at is also the health components too. How much health does he have? And does it affect the damage when he gets hit? These are all things that you need to consider when you're using the advanced locomotion system, or when you're just making a game with any other asset, or you're building it from scratch. You need some type of components to build off of. And also, there's another video that I made with the Unreal gameplay component plugin, the gas. Okay, so make sure you check out that video too. If you're interested in learning about gas, you should go ahead and check out that video, because I do a review of the action RPG template that was provided by Unreal. Okay, so let's move on. So there's one more thing I just want to add, and you can probably go into further details about this, but let's say, for example, if you wanted to spawn a component during runtime, your best bet wouldn't be to use the create default subobjects, right, in the constructor. You actually want to use something called a new object. And some use cases for this would be if you want to spawn something other than an actor. And keep in mind, it's not visible or existing in the world. However, it's perfect for some inventory stuff. So inventory data, stuff like that. Okay, so keep that in mind. Keep it in the back of your head. If you ever need it, it's called new object. And remember, when you're using Unreal, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just try to extend it. If it's in the engine, well, 9 times out of 10, whatever you're trying to create is probably or most likely in the engine. So that's this is a point for you to understand. I can't stress it enough in every one of my videos that you shouldn't really be trying to say, "Hey, I'm going to rewrite the wheel." You should actually be trying to understand how to extend that wheel for your own stuff. And actor components are one of the best ways to do it. Okay, so let's look at something else. Useful functions with them is bool is active. We can use it to activate and deactivate the components. And also the tick component is similar to the actor frame rate. It runs every tick. Also, a side note is that we can allow B is active we can allow it, and we can activate it and deactivate it by I'm sorry, B is active can be sort of allowed to or deactivate everything, including the tick component. So it does it without terminating the component or eliminating the actor. So this is something that you guys need to keep in mind in the back of your head as well. All right, let's move on. So a recap from this is, what did you learn about the actor components? Okay, go ahead and write it down now. What did you learn? How would they fit in your game? So go ahead and think about, how would these actors fit in my game, and does it fit the use case of what I need in my game? How would they fit in the advanced locomotion system as well? Because I think most of you who are watching this also use that. So think about how it would fit in, and try to look at other people's games to see which components you want to make for your game. Like, for example, if you see something in God of War, you see a projectile. Well, hey, look, I want to make that a component because I want I want my player to be able to use it, and I want my NPCs to be able to use it. That looks like a really good use case for a component. I think I want to use that. You have to start thinking this way, especially with Unreal Engine. This is actually, actors are kind of like the premise, I would say, the base of Unreal Engine. So if you're not understanding this so far, just go ahead and go back on this video and start again and watch it over. Or you might want to go to Google and look up actor components and try to read more information about it. But I encourage you not to just use this as your blanket statement for actor components. You need to go ahead and do your self-research and make sure that you are going through and looking at different types of information on it. And